the new political and strategic role of the Eastern and Central European countries within the European Union and for the entire European security. Here at Bratislava, by the historical Danube, at the Global Security Conference for the Global Conversation. Mr. Miroslav Wlachovsky, Foreign Affairs Minister of Slovakia. Then Mr. Zbigniew, Foreign Affairs Minister of Poland. Welcome. And Kersti Kaljulaid, who served as the President of Estonia from 2016 to 2021. There are talks, say, at least at press level, at media level, about possibility of opening discussion for at least reaching a kind of ceasefire. Do you really think that these attempts are credible, or do you think that the peace finally, or even a ceasefire, a stable ceasefire, say, will come only after a military failure of Russia in Ukraine with the territorial integrity of Ukraine?
I would repeat myself, but I said it several times. The easiest way how to reach a peace in Ukraine is that Russia will withdraw their forces. I think what we need here, it's not just peace, but just peace. Means that this will be the peace which will recognize the aggressor, will punish the aggressor, and will somehow help the victim. That's what we should aim for. That's how the international law should work and how the international relations should work.
Yes?
Frankly speaking, all the talks which will say, let's settle now for a ceasefire and then negotiate something back wouldn't work. Imagine we had done the same when the aggression started, what was done in Tbilisi a week or two in this conflict. Where exactly would Russians be? 20 kilometers from Kiev. Sorry, it has to be first Ukrainians clear their territory and then we can talk.
We are all for peace. We are all for ceasefire. This goes without saying. This is the case from Brazil, I suppose, to India, and from France to Estonia, Slovakia, or Poland. The issue is, what kind of peace do you expect? And I can tell you very briefly what I think about it. The desired peace is a just peace that allows us to restore national independence of Ukraine, state sovereignty, territorial integrity, then the reconstruction of Ukraine at the expense of Russia above all, because Russia is guilty of the destruction of Ukraine, and then the bringing all those who are guilty of this aggression to justice. If you expect a just and lasting peace, is to make Russia be not in a position to turn back to its imperial practices in in foreign policy.
Now we have established that Russia must withdraw and abide by the international law, and as long as it won't happen, there won't be any possibility.
I just wanted to say there is a possibility, but it is for Ukrainians to decide. It is for them to decide. If they feel that they are ready to sit and negotiate, they feel confident they are negotiating from the point of strength, there is a chance. So it's not so bleak picture, I would say, but we cannot decide. It's only the Ukrainians who can decide. I wanted to add that.
We have seen recently the polemic within the European Union for the grain crisis, the grain import crisis. So how long do you think your societies will be able to go on in such a kind of emergency situation?
Well, first of all, it was not our choice. And yes, it is difficult for our countries, but we understand what would be an alternative. And the alternative is much more bleak. I mean, no one really wants to be a neighbor of some kind of Putin regime in Ukraine or Putin's on our border, instead of having as our neighbor the sovereign Ukraine. It's very simple, and I think the price we are paying is high, but still much lower than the alternative.
I've asked this question from my West Berlin friends. Did they feel like living in a militarized country during the Cold War? No, they did not. I mean, being able to defend you adds to the security and the feeling of security of people. So the more NATO presence in eastern flank, the better.
Poland, that, by the way, is apparently, according to what is being said, is called to become a kind of fortress in Europe. The military spending, for instance, of Poland is growing, and it's playing a relevant political role now, the country, in the security of Europe.
First of all, that as far as even referring to yourself, I can say that Polish society considers the defense of Ukraine something not only politically correct, but absolutely crucial, even something that we can describe as our existential choice. You see, in the 19th century, when we were deprived of our independence and you couldn't find Poland on the map of Europe, Polish patriots came up with this kind of motto: for your freedom and ours. So we were well-known freedom fighters in Europe. The point was, in the 19th century, and especially also in the 20th century, that we were ready to fight for freedom of others, and the others were not very often ready to fight for our freedom. And now, what we experience in this war is that there is a country, namely Ukraine, that in fact is fighting for our freedom, whether it's freedom of Slovakia, Estonia, and Poland. When you are asking about the role that Poland is playing now on the eastern flank, certainly we believe as a NATO ally that the level of military spending in the alliance should be at 2% of GDP, but it should be, let me put it this way, the floor rather than the ceiling. And this is the reason why we believe it's correct to spend right now slightly more than 4% of our GDP in this year, but nevertheless more than 3%. Because I suppose that the very notion of an effective alliance is to consider ourselves, and I think that this is also the case. It should be the case with any other country, a NATO member. Consider ourselves not as only the recipients of security, but also as providers of security. That's the reason why we decide to spend as much, because the philosophy behind it is that others are going to help you, provided that first of all you have to be in a position to help yourself, defend yourself first, and then defend others, your neighbors too.
Do you think that you have enough understanding and support from the other European partners when it comes to the European Union? And also, many of them are also NATO partners, your NATO partners. Do you think they understand you completely? And do you feel that they are supporting you? Or there is always some ambiguity or something that is not clear when it comes to European councils or a council of ministers or NATO meetings and so on and so forth?
You know, I am a market economist. Markets are always right. And if I look how reluctantly the industry is investing against the bet that there will be long-term need for ammunition, cannons, tanks, etc. Initially, I thought that the industry has gone lazy, just looking for guarantees everywhere and so on. But in the year which has passed, the more I talk to them, their prediction is that the willingness to spend more on military equipment is short-lived, and it might be over as soon as the war is over, or soon after that.
Minister?
Well, I suppose that you are raising the fundamental issue here, because within the NATO alliance, we always talk about unity.
United in weakness, you mean?
No, it's not a matter just of weakness. It's more a matter of not doing anything. We on the eastern flank think about it in a different way. We have to meet the challenge, and those of us who are most sensitive to this challenge, given our geopolitical situation, given our historical experience, and so on, we feel obliged to set the agenda to make this unity simply dynamic, to make it to meet the challenges. Take, for example, Poland. We have managed to build a tank coalition. We decided to send first the fighter jets, and so on and so on. So it's a matter. The last sentence.
I would like to talk about the weaponry.
Yeah,
after.
but it's a matter of showing the goal to which we should all go in order to achieve it. So this is the dynamic kind of unity that NATO really, and also the European Union, needs.
Thank you, Mr. Rao. Mr. Wlachovsky, I would like also to say one thing before. Sorry. This is true for the Baltic countries and for Poland. For Slovakia, the situation is a little bit different, considering the figures.
When we are talking about numbers and about people, I think there is an important word which is called leadership. And the leadership means that you lead despite the numbers, and you have to find a way how to convince people. That's really important. But here in this country, the government took important decisions because they thought, and I agree with them, it was right thing to do. Basically, that was it, and it was in the interest of not only Slovakia but the whole region.
Not really popular decision, according to the figures.
Well, there are many unpopular decisions which must be made,
yeah.
And this might be one of them. But I'm proud that we were able to do them, and I think it's not difficult to make tough decisions when everybody agrees. It's difficult when a lot of people disagree to make a right decision.
The title of this debate is Leading from the Center. But don't you think that this leadership from the center is a kind of lame duck? Because, for instance, there are some black holes. Let's talk about a very important absent here, Hungary, for instance, that should be a masterpiece of a...
Yeah, maybe indeed we should always take, this kind of lowest denominator and say we have actually disintegrated from the European Union because there was Brexit. This is exactly the argument you are making. Just the fact that one of the Central and Eastern European countries is playing a different game, showing us how the world would look like if there were no kind of rules-based, but interest-based, worldview only, not even order, but worldview, then it's not fair to us. Because we are leading by example. We are spending, we are trying to defend ourselves as much as possible. We are speaking politely but honestly where we are. We are also, sharing honestly and openly our worries that we are not all on the same page, and we are having success.
And because in the European Union anyway, Hungary, when it comes to other issues that are not related to security, is a kind of good support for the position of Poland when it comes to the civil rights and rule of law and this kind of issues.
Are we going to lead in the same way Germany wants to lead Europe? Certainly not, especially not we in Poland, because we believe in something very fundamental, that all EU member states are free and equal in the same way, and the interests of each and every of us should be represented in the same way.
Well, I was about to take a question from Slido now. It's about, but it is gone, unfortunately. It was about the 2% of spending. The question was about the fact that is it logical to still talk about the strategic autonomy of the European Union when a lot of countries are not reaching the 2% of their spending, so the military issue is not a priority for them?
For me, it's not about the structures. For me, it's about the capabilities and capabilities to act when it's needed. And I must say that I'm a big supporter of a transatlantic link and NATO as a defense alliance. But I fully understand the wish of our American allies and our American friends. Please, European, be able to deal with these issues on your own when it's necessary. And for that, we need those capabilities.
In order to project power, in order to have influence in the neighborhood, one needs capabilities. Direct citation from High Representative. So everybody, West and East, knows. But of course, there is a slight discrepancy in that some are talking about strategic autonomy and some are spending, and they're not necessarily the same people.
Well, the spending, the spending is. I guess the question was coming from Slido, but I guess that the idea was anyway strategic autonomy vis-a-vis NATO, and so the United States. I guess that for your countries this is not a real insurance, life insurance.
But I've never heard it this way spoken also by those who invented the terminology. Mm-hmm. I've never heard, let's say, Nathalie Tozzi or Emmanuel Macron or Federica Mogherini to say this is what we are doing in order to be more independent from US. They've always said we are doing this to be able to support US global ambition to defend the free world, but we have to be able to do something ourselves. And there have been lots of misunderstandings. Some words, turn into rude words. It's not our fault. But the concept is materially right.
If the European Union believes that it is a global player responsible for the geopolitical situation in the world, and if it considers itself a defender of the values of the free world, it cannot stay indifferent to the situation in its backyard.
Do you think that the most practical way to reconstruct Ukraine, would it be a Ukraine in the waiting list to join the European Union, or to start the reconstruction with a Ukraine within the European Union as a member, from a purely, say, practical point of view, and if it's politically viable or economically viable? What do you think? This is the question for the three of you.
I'm...
Sure, please.
Yes, try to be short. Fact is that for Ukraine to join the European Union, the leaders of the European Union have to be able to tell to their companies and businesses, invest there like you would invest in your own country. The economic environment is the same. Your investment is protected the same way. The rule of law is established the same way. This has not been the case in Ukraine before the war, and I hope they can quickly overcome the difficulties which they had before, and then, of course, they can join. Because EU is an economic union, we have also this aspect. We cannot just politically decide, come inside, we'll reform afterwards, because we have to give this message to our businesses, go and invest there.
Please.
Yep. I really strongly hope that we will start with reconstruction of the Ukraine before they join the European Union, because I want to start the reconstruction of Ukraine really quickly. The precondition for that is the war will end, and in the meantime we have to prepare, and we have to find a way how to find the best way how to help them to reconstruct their country.
quite frankly, I suppose the best way to proceed is to launch these two processes in a parallel way.
Double track.
Double track, yeah. Indeed.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.